Hey folks, today we're going to take a look at a game that is currently seeking funding on Kickstarter. That game is called Karrier, and it's from the publisher Flipbear. Now, if you like what you see throughout the rest of this preview video, I'm going to encourage you to go to the official Kickstarter project page and find out more information than I could possibly tell you here. To do that, all you got to do is follow the link in the top corner of your screen, as well as down in the description section underneath this video. Go there, find out more information, and hopefully consider backing the project. Now, Karrier is a competitive game where you and the other players are basically cleaners in this fictional city of Tish. And the city has been it's just been overrun with corruption and literal garbage everywhere. It's known to become like a junk city at this point. But you are in charge of your little territory, a space out on the board, and you need to clean all the garbage out of that space and dump them at the sacred altar of the city. Now, that's the plan, and if you can be the first one to do that, you'll win. But of course, that is easier said than done. The other players are trying to do the same thing as well, because whoever can clean out their territory the first is be the first one to do that is going to become the king of this junk city of Tish. But they're going to be trying to outmaneuver you. They're going to be trying to throw their trash onto your carrier, which is the carriage and horse that you have to transport the trash around, and all kinds of other nefarious things that they can try and do to trip you up. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and take a brief look at how the game is played with a prototype copy of the game. So just do bear in mind that what you see here in this version may change in the final version, which is why it's very important to go to the crowdfunding page to find out more information about what's in store for the game. But in any event, we will come back after that and discuss it further. Karrier is a competitive game for 3 to 6 players. Each player is in charge of cleaning up their territory in the city of Tish. They'll use their carrier, which is a horse and carriage, to pick up the trash in their territory and dump it in the city's sacred altar. If they can clear out all their trash and enter the altar with an empty carriage, they will immediately win the game. But this is easier said than done, as the other players and their carriers will try to outmaneuver each other and force the others to clean up even more trash. To set up the game, lay out the game board and place 5 trash tokens in each area designated as a character territory, and 3 trash tokens in the 3 areas adjacent to the central territory. The central territory space, by the way, connects to a sacred altar piece that you keep off to the side of the board. It functions as a dice tower as well, so keep the special dice near it and within reach of all players. Next, every player chooses, or is randomly dealt, a character card. This determines which character territory the player's carrier will start in, as indicated by the matching flag symbol. Choose a carrier piece and place it there. Each player also takes a carriage card and a movement band token. Shuffle the deck of action cards and leave them within reach of all players. Lastly, randomly decide who will be the first player and give them the first player marker, or give it to whoever cleaned their room last. Then the game begins with that player. On your turn, you'll take several actions before passing to the next player. First, you'll draw an action card. You can hold up to 4 cards at a time, and you must discard if you draw and end up with more than that. Next, the player has the option of cleaning the space their carrier currently occupies by loading up to 4 trash tokens onto their carriage card. You then have the option to move, but this has special restrictions. You can only move 1 space up or down or sideways, but not diagonally. Also, when moving into a territory, you must load at least 1 trash token if there are any there. If you're already fully loaded, you can't enter that territory without the use of a special action card, but you are always free to move into an empty space. From the central territory, you can move directly to the sacred altar by spending another move action once you're there, either on your next turn or with an extra action from a card. When at the altar with trash tokens, you have the option of dumping them by rolling dice. Roll a number of dice equal to the number of trash tokens that you have. Every O you get lets you discard a trash token from the game. Every X does nothing. After the roll, your carrier is automatically moved back to your starting territory with any trash that you have left over. After moving, or not, you may choose to use as many action cards as you want by reading them aloud, taking the actions, and discarding the cards. These cards have powerful effects, such as giving you extra movement, denying your opponent's movement, which is what those band tokens are for, letting you hurl trash onto opponents' carriers or forcing an opponent's carrier to move. That last action can be a big issue. If you are forcibly moved by another player into a territory that has trash tokens, you must pick up one token. If your carriage is already full, a boom occurs. All of your trash tokens get dumped in your current territory. If this would occur in the central territory, instead, the carrier is shunted to its home territory and the trash is dumped there. The bomb card can also do this to a player if the roll doesn't go in their favor. When you no longer have any actions to play, or simply don't want to, pass the turn marker to the next player in clockwise order, who will then take their turn in the same manner. Play will continue like this until one player is able to clean all the trash from their territory and then end up on the sacred altar with a completely empty carriage. That player is the winner of the game. But there is more Carrier to come in the future, including a special mini expansion with new win conditions, actions, and hazards. But for now, that is Carrier. Well, Carrier is a very unique game from the theme, of course. I mean, there's plenty of games that have a fantasy city and plenty of games where you're sort of moving around and doing like a sort of pick up and deliver type thing with stuff in the city, but not really ones that have you picking up garbage and trying to foist those goods, garbage in this case, onto the other players because you don't want it. They're like hot potatoes, basically. Hot garbage potatoes. You don't want those. So just the theme itself is very unique, but also the presentation and how you have the wooden pieces representing your carrier and the horses in the carriage, moving those around with the sacred altar piece, which is not just an area that you can go to. It's a dice tray and a dice tower that you use to roll the dice, which you can use to eliminate the garbage, which is which happens there at the altar. Another unique thing that you wouldn't necessarily think. Why does the trash go to the altar? Again, it's because the city is just so corrupt at this point. So all these things sort of bleed together and make it more unique than most games of this type that you would see. And by this type, I mean, again, moving tokens around and rolling dice. And also, even in the prototype version, having the high quality artwork and such. There is a lot of strategy to how you're using those cards. It's a card-driven game. So the actions you can take turn by turn are rather simple, and in that regard, it actually makes the game really fast and easy to teach to people. But it comes down to those cards and how you choose to conserve them and use them wisely. There's a very, very, very important spatial element to the game, where it's not just moving your carrier in such a way to be advantageous, which sometimes can require multi-turn strategy. You can't just like do things immediately and hope to get immediate payoff. Sometimes you can, sometimes you don't. But it can also mean using some of those nastier cards to push your opponent into other spaces and make them have a really bad time, especially with those booms, which can make them drop all their garbage, which is not necessarily a terrible thing when it happens, but usually is a bad thing because it usually means that your opponent's going to force you to go into a space that might be your original space if they can manage it, and that gets really bad. But what you want to remember, you want to get rid of your garbage. All you want is to get your garbage out of your initial territory and then have nothing on your cart when you go back to the sacred altar for hopefully your final turn. So it's very important. It's, again, the hot potato aspect of not having the stuff and keeping it out of certain areas and making sure your opponents don't drop off. I mean, your opponents can go and drop off garbage, potentially, which is why a boom can be important. They can actually maneuver themselves to potentially drop garbage into your initial spot. It's a hard thing to do, but they could if they think you're going to win. So there's all these spatial elements that you need to be very, very aware of. You can't just race to the finish line without taking these things into account. But again, like I said, turn by turn and initially setting up the game is all rather simple. So it's not something that's going to be, while there is a lot of crunchiness to the strategy of the game, it's not something that people are going to be overwhelmed by if they're perhaps not, used to very, very complicated games, but they are attracted to this game because of its theme and its appearance and such. They could still potentially have a good time with the game and not be overwhelmed by the rules. But if that appeals to you, or if it appeals to someone that you know, you don't have to take my word for any of that. You could go to the official Kickstarter project page and find out more information for yourself. You can do that by following the link in the top corner of your screen, as well as down in the description section underneath this video. Go there, find out more info, and hopefully consider backing the project. That is Karrier from the publisher, Flip Bear. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, for supporting our sponsors. Take care.